Before I begin, let me introduce myself. My name is Nick Nowak, and I will be giving an informational speech on gardening. As the seasons change and the weather becomes warmer, a very important time of the year is coming up for gardeners. Mother's Day is around the corner, and so is the time to start planting. Gardening is best done in the warmer summer and can be a very relaxing and prosperous hobby. I'm currently studying horticulture and have a huge passion for plants. Since the season is upon us, I will be sharing with you a little about gardening. Today I will be telling you about when to plant your seeds, how to prepare your land for planting, and how to care for your plants until harvest. Many aspects go into setting up a garden. However, it is very important to plan on when you will plant the crops. Starting your seeds is very important. You have two options really when it comes to starting your seeds. Starting them indoors or starting them outside when it gets warmer. If you do decide to start them indoors, make sure you have adequate space and light for the seedlings when they emerge. You can find a nice sunny window or even put them under a grow light. You may need to harden off the plant before leaving it outside though, if you do start them inside, according to the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. This is due to the fact that the plants may not be able to handle the conditions outside as well because they started off in a better indoor condition. Starting inside might actually give the plants a head start too, and possibly a bigger yield at harvest, due to the fact that you did start them 1 month earlier. You may want to buy a seed starting tray if you plan on starting many plants. This will keep all your plants in one container and makes watering and transplanting way easier in the future. These also come with a humidity dome, and you can put that on top when you're germinating your seeds to keep in moisture, which actually speeds up the germination rate a little bit. If you decide to wait for warmer weather and plant your seed directly outside, you will have to wait until the last frost date to plant. The government organization NOAA says the last frost date falls between April 3rd and June 3rd. The reason you want to wait until the last frost date to plant is because if your seedling emerges and then it frosts over, the seedling will actually die because of the frost. So now that you've decided to either start your seeds indoors or wait for warmer weather, it's time to start preparing the ground. Before working the garden though, there's a few things to consider first. Before anything, make sure your garden is in the right conditions. Make sure the plants will be able to get enough sun throughout the entire day, as it is crucial for their growth. Look for areas with low wind and not too many bugs or pest problems. Check the soil consistency also. Is it a sandy, loamy, or clay-like soil? Specific soils need specific additives, or you could potentially mess up the soil. There is something called the soil triangle, which you can use to figure out what soil you need to add. You can also use something called the soil test, which multiple universities allow. You can just send a sample of your soil. You usually take multiple samples from different places, and you send in a little bit of that mix of those different places, and they'll test it for you and tell you exactly what you need to add. But if you were to add sand to clay soil, you would actually create cement, according to the Illinois Extension, and that would be very bad for your plants to grow through. Once you know the additive you need to work with, till it into the soil along with any humus soil. Humus is what's left behind when plants degrade, according to National Geographic. Many companies sell this as soil mixes or even humus on its own. And this is very important as it'll give the plant more nutrients to grow with. Finally, add any last additions to your garden. You can add any cool decorations, or if you live around a lot of critters, use barriers or fences to keep them away from your garden. You wouldn't want any critters eating any of your fruits and vegetables after a bunch of hard work. Place supports, poles, and trellises if you're growing any type of vine plant for supports. This will be helpful later when you're growing cucumbers or grapes if you are. They won't fall over. Now that you've finished working on your garden, you might be anxious to go and plant your seeds outside, but you must be strong and wait until the last frost date or risk losing your plants. Once the last frost date passes, it's time to start caring for your plants outdoors. If you started indoors, it's very important that you harden off your seedlings before transplanting them outside. The conditions outside may be harsher than in your house, leading the plants to burn up or blow over. Hardening off is where you take your plants outside for a few hours and then take them back in, repeating the process every so often. This helps the plant create a tolerance to the conditions outside and helps it survive a bit better. After you've successfully hardened off the plants, it's time to transplant them into the soil and take good care of them. Transplanting is as easy as taking the soil plug out of the tray, digging a hole big enough for the plug, and filling it in, making sure the plug is level to the soil surface. Now that your plants or seeds are in the ground, they will need water. It really depends on how much to give them based on how hot it is, the humidity, and rain it receives, but the UCCE Agriculture and National Resources recommends to add just over 1/2 a gallon per square foot of your garden each week. Once your plants are growing well and producing flowers, it's time for pollinating and the harvest season is nearing. In nature, plants rely on birds, bees, other bugs, and bats to carry pollen from flower to flower. Bats actually pollinate many tropical fruits. If you are antsy and don't want to wait on the bees or just want the biggest yield possible, you can also hand pollinate where you cut off one of the male flowers and rub it on some of the female flowers. You can repeat this process to make sure that all the flowers are pollinated. Once the plant has been pollinated, its flowers will slowly wilt and the fruit or veggie behind it will start to grow. And after a while, it will grow to be a full-size fruit or vegetable for you to eat. There's far more you can do to care for your plants, like adding fertilizer or other soil additives. However, this is all you really need to do to have your own personal garden. I hope you enjoyed this information about gardening and learned a little about when to plant your seeds, how to prepare your area for planting, and how to care for your plants until it's time for harvest. Of course, gardening can be frustrating at times, and when it becomes just that, remember that there's no such thing as mistakes or failures in gardening, only experiments.